Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different. We are going to become a single tap on a screen. We'll follow its journey from the second your finger touches the glass down through the layers of the Flutter framework all the way to a visible change on the screen.
I mean, you tap a button and poof, something happens, right? It feels instantaneous, almost like magic. But what's really going on under the hood? Well, there's this beautifully engineered sequence of events. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and follow that tap, step by step.
All right, so to really get how Flutter handles that tap, we've got to start at the very, very beginning. We need to talk about the one core idea that everything else is built on.
If you've spent any time with Flutter, you have heard this a million times, right? Everything is a widget. And look, it's not just some catchy phrase they came up with. It is literally the foundational philosophy of the entire framework. From the button, to the padding around it, to the layout of the whole screen, it's widgets all the way down.
So here's the key takeaway. A widget wears two hats. It's not just the thing you see, the visual part, it's also the thing that's listening for what you do. It's the looks and the brains, all wrapped up in one tidy little package.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that exact first moment your finger makes contact with the glass. What happens first? How does the framework even know you're there?
Well, Flutter has this really smart two-layer system for figuring out what you want. It starts with the super basic raw data, the physics of the touch, and then it builds a layer of meaning on top of that. Let's break down that first layer.
Yeah, the best way to think of the pointers layer is as the raw nerve endings of your app. It's not thinking about taps or swipes or anything fancy yet. It's just feeling the raw physics. Okay, a pointer went down at these exact coordinates. Now it's moving. Now it's up. Its main job is to perform what's called a hit test. Basically, it just looks at those coordinates and asks the simple question, hey, what widget is sitting right here? So you've got the stream of raw data. Coordinates, timestamps, but on its own, that's not super helpful for building an app, right? You don't care about coordinates, you care if the user tapped a button. So that's where the next layer comes in. Its entire job is to translate that raw noise into a meaningful signal. And this slide just nails the difference, doesn't it? The pointers layer is all about the sensation. It just feels the touch. The gestures layer is about understanding. It looks at that pattern of touches and says, oh, that quick down and up, I know what that is, that's a tab. Or that down, move, and up, that's a drag. And the hero of this story, the thing doing all that translation work, is the gesture detector. It's this amazing invisible widget that's like a universal listener. You can wrap it around pretty much anything to teach it how to understand all these common user actions. And man, is it flexible. We're talking simple taps, double taps, long presses, all the way to more complex stuff like dragging or pinching to zoom. And here's the best part. So many of the widgets you use every day, like buttons, already have a gesture detector built right in. So a lot of the time, you get all this power for free. Okay, so now that we know how to understand gestures, Flutter gives us this whole toolbox of actual visible widgets that are designed from the ground up to listen for them. This is how you make your app feel alive. I mean, you've got your classic button, right? It's the most straightforward way to let a user do something. They're basically pre-packaged to listen for a tap and then run whatever code you stick in that on-pressed callback. Super simple, super effective. You can't build an app without them. Then you have text fields, which are obviously essential anytime you need to get input from the user. You can get real-time feedback with onChanged, which is great for simple stuff. But for more control, like if you need to clear the field or set its text programmatically, you'll want to use a text editing controller. And of course, what about making choices? Flutter's got you covered. Whether you're flipping a switch, picking one thing from a list with a radio button, or grabbing a few things with a checkbox, these are your go-to tools for letting users configure things. Okay, now this is where things get really cool. Look at this. Flutter doesn't force you into a one-size-fits-all UI. It gives you different sets of widgets. You've got Material Design, which gives you that classic Android look and feel, and then you have Cupertino, which gives you widgets that look and feel perfectly native on iOS. This is huge for making your app feel right at home no matter what device it's on.
Okay, let's recap. We followed the tap from the glass, through the pointer layer, into the gesture layer, and all the way to a widget's on-pressed function. The code ran, but nothing's changed on the screen yet. So how do we close the loop? This is the final and honestly the most important piece of the entire puzzle.
The magic ingredient here is something called a stateful widget. Unlike a plain old static widget that just sits there, a stateful widget has a memory.
It can hold on to data, what we call its state, and crucially, it knows how to redraw itself whenever that data changes.
And this simple three-step process is basically the engine that drives all interactivity in Flutter. Step 1. The user does something and your code changes some data. Step 2. You call this special function setState. Think of this like raising a big red flag. It's you shouting to the Flutter framework, "Hey, pay attention, something over here just changed." And finally, step 3. The framework sees that flag and tells the widget, "All right, time to rebuild yourself with that new data." And bam, the UI updates.
And listen, this next part is so important because it gets almost every single developer when they're starting out. Just changing your data variable is not enough. You have to call setState. If you forget that step, your data might change behind the scenes, but the user will never ever see it. The screen just won't update. It's probably the most common bug for newcomers, and it all comes down to forgetting to raise that flag.
And there you have it. That is the entire journey from A to Z, from a physical touch to a raw pointer event to a meaningful gesture which triggers a state change, and finally a UI rebuild. Once you really understand that flow, you have the fundamental key to building any kind of dynamic, responsive, and frankly, delightful app in Flutter. The mechanics are simple once you see them, but what you can build with them, well, that's completely up to you.